see Sean Cullen's great improv skills here. If he can come up with something, and Brad's worth probably more money than all of us in the room, times 100. Can you come up maybe with
Would you invest in floating condominiums in Lake Ontario?
Oh. Well, I love that idea. Floating condominiums. It's going to come to that.
Well, we're going to expand out into the water on piers and things like that and build
The
condos.
environmentalists won't go for that.
There's nothing alive in Lake Ontario.
No, you're right. Bacteria.
Well,
you need
that could help.
There's good bacteria and bad bacteria.
What kind of material would you need in a condo for it not to be Lake Ontario bacteria proof?
You know what you'd probably do is you'd probably build them on piers. I like that idea. Let's annex Lake Ontario and just build it over with condos. No more Lake Ontario.
Well, you got to have it high enough on the pier so at least some sailboats and ships could get through. But other than that, right?
Fuck the sailboats.
Okay. You don't like getting on a sailboat from time to time?
By the way, I'm kidding.
I know you are.
I'm kidding. Just in case anyone's listening thinks I'm not kidding, I am kidding. I love Lake Ontario.
On the Todd Shapiro Show, SiriusXM 168.
How you doing, Mr. Brad JLamb?
I'm good.
You look like you've been working out. You look like tough, like real tough today. You lifting weights this morning?
I'm tough every day.
Okay. Sean Cullen, Brad JLamb.
How do you do?
I think I've seen you live before.
You might have.
Yeah, you're funny.
Well, thank you, Brad.
Yeah.
That's nice of you to say. I can't say you're as funny as me because I don't know.
No, I'm not as funny as you.
No.
Nowhere
I remember
near.
once I had to put a condo on the market and you came to look at it and you were not impressed.
No?
No, but that was not an impressive condo.
But I was nice, right?
Well, not particularly. Okay. But that's all right.
Now that sounds like me.
It's honesty is best.
Yep.
Wait, would you have, Brad, you would have actually gone at some point in your early stages?
It was like many years ago, though. It was like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. No, I was a real estate agent from 88. An active real estate agent going and meeting individuals that had places to sell till like 90, probably 98, 97 maybe. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
That's wild because and would you actually go and check out places like Sean Cullen's and go?
It was it was basically a 1-bedroom place, but it was Portland. I forget what the place. It was Portland and Front Street. You know? Yeah.
The stucco building there.
That's the stucco building.
One on Front Street.
Already, I feel the disdain. The stucco building.
Okay, we'll call it EFIS. That's better.
EFIS is so much nicer.
The one on Front Street.
Yeah, but it was the top floor. It was a small one. Yeah, it had a roof deck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was I liked it, but obviously you didn't.
No, would you not sell it?
It probably wasn't big enough.
It's a
for
shit
you.
building, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, like the units with the roof decks are nice because you have a roof deck, but it was built at a time. It was built in the just after the massive real estate recession we had here. It was built in the kind of 95, 96 era.
Yeah.
And it was probably $100 a square foot, $120 a square foot to buy. And land was probably like $5 or $6. So you got to build it and make a profit. So you're not using expensive material. So a lot of the buildings from that era were just post-recession buildings, and prices were really low. And if you wanted to build and make a profit, you couldn't use precast or brick. You had to use something called EFIS, which is basically it's an architectural.
Sounds like a secretion of some kind.
Well, it's like that. It's an architectural styrofoam. That's what it is.
Oh, my favorite styrofoam home. That's what I want. Say if there's a flood, it just floats.
Architectural styrofoam.
Becomes a ship. So undesirable. So you would turn down units going, you can't make money here.
No, he's just being funny.
Okay.
I didn't turn down the listing.
No.
I wasn't. No, I would sell. Listen, I will sell anything to anybody, anytime. I won't create it, but I'll sell it.
Right. Exactly, because you create masterpieces, Mr. Lamb.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I try.
Let me kiss an ass. Let me kiss ass. Okay.
Okay. Kiss an ass.
Okay, I'm gonna kiss your ass here a little bit. Heard things. Did you stay up late last night?
I stayed up and saw the whole thing.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Well, no. I'll say this. I think the reason why Hillary Clinton lost was, well, there's lots of reasons, but I think the principal reason was that there was really nothing. There's really no difference between Hillary Clinton's policies and those of Barack Obama's. And I think Barack Obama was a fantastic president, but not necessarily for the stuff he got done, for the stuff that didn't happen while he was president.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what did happen while he was president was, unfortunately, the deficit went up by 2 times. It went from 10 billion to 21 billion in 8 years. You know, that's a terrible record for fiscal prudence. And I think that's interesting. That I think maybe consumers, at least in the U.S., voters have just had it with government largesse, and also.
But don't you think that a part of that, though, was a recession that occurred immediately upon him becoming president, and he had to spend his way out of that recession,
you're right,
and then had a huge budget, like the trillions came onto the budget because of that.
Yeah.
He kind of had a perfect storm of awfulness.
Well, he did, but let me say this, that Canada exited that recession in far better shape budget-wise and deficit-wise. So Harper's government, our debt per capita is 1/2 of the debt per capita that the United States currently has. And prior to that recession, we weren't that far apart.
Well,
so
aren't the banks in Canada a lot more stable than the banks in America, though? And we're much more regulated.
Fair enough, but I'll tell you that every dollar that he invested in the auto industry and in the banking industry, they got back by a huge portion. Not only all the money paid back, they also got massive penalties from the banks, huge penalties, and they also earned huge returns on their investments. So that was not a loser that they did. They made money. No, it's because of social programs and spending that, I mean, listen, you have a right-wing government in Canada, you had a left-wing government in the States during that period, and you can just see the difference between the two. Are Canadians better off than Americans currently are now? We are, and we had a right-wing government during that period. So I think that, I mean, listen, I'm not left-wing, I'm not right-wing, I'm kind of in the middle. Being a business person, I'm pragmatic about spending money, so I think that the media, I really believe that the media tried to turn Donald Trump into a buffoon, and I think that the public didn't buy it. I think that they think he's a more serious person. But isn't he kind of a buffoon? I think he's a far more serious person than the media gave him credit for. And so one of the things I find interesting is that they say that he was a rich kid and he inherited lots of money. He had four other siblings. He inherited late in his life between $50 and $80 million, because Fred Trump died with a worth of about $400 million. He had to pay estate taxes. The guy's worth $6 billion. He's a tremendously successful business person, and he tried to make this guy into a buffoon, like he wasn't a billionaire and he wasn't a successful guy. This guy's driving around the country for the last 15 years in a 727 jet.
It's better than Air Force One.
That's not a Learjet, man. That's a like, forget about how much it costs to buy it. To operate that plane, it's like $500,000 an hour to operate that plane, and he flies all over the world in that plane. Has no trouble paying the bills. He's a very, very wealthy man, very, very successful man. And I think the problem is, and I think the people of the United States realize he's not a buffoon. He's a serious guy, and he's an outsider. He's the first person that's been elected a president, as long as I can remember, that's not a politician.
He's the first person as the president who's never served on any office before in the history of that. So that's a statistic right there. And it's almost like it's like a civil war without the war. They're really, it's like a social media civil war.
Give it time.
Give it time.
Listen, the bottom line is this. I think that the power of a president is limited. And, someone in my office today had this illogical fear that he's going to be more likely to send nuclear missiles to Russia than Hillary Clinton. Nobody is sending any nuclear missiles anywhere. Donald Trump is not irrational at all. He's a very rational human being. I will admit that he he acts and behaves in a very arrogant fashion that rubs people the wrong way, and that's not the way he should behave. But that is his personality. I don't think that's not going to make him a good president.
And I think the problem is that Hillary Clinton acted in too arrogant of a way. And that people read right through her, and that people, like we've said it earlier on the program with Sean Conlon, that people really voted against her as well. There was no humility. Bernie would have brought that, but Joe Biden probably would have brought that. Bloomberg might have brought that.
I guess so, but what we see as arrogance in a woman is very different from what we'll accept as arrogance in a man.
How so?
Well, I think when you're arrogant and forceful as a woman, you are a bitch, and you're, you get people attack you for that. Whereas men can be forceful and demanding and all those ways, and people say that's just.
They'll say he's strong. You're right. You're right. Women have less latitude with that. Listen, Hillary Clinton, I think, is a smart, capable woman. She has zero magnetism. Or relatability, Well, I don't know. I mean, people who are in those ivory towers that run for president are often not that relatable. But, I mean, I can't think of anyone that relatable in the last while except Barack Obama. But she probably would have been a pretty good president. She had a lot of baggage she carried with her, and the bottom line was she really represented, despite the fact it was this all together thing. She was a status quo. And
she was a continuation of what Barack brought.
And people do not want.
They want to change.
Quo. They want change. I mean, listen, you probably recall when the government could not write checks because they couldn't fund their economy or their government economy because it was the budget was deadlocked in Congress and in the Senate. It couldn't get through, and so for weeks nobody got paid. They laid people off in the U.S. government because nothing was going on. And so there's this animosity, there's this distrust or mistrust. It is a swamp in Washington. And the question is, are politicians working in the best interest of people? Are they working in the best interest of special interest groups? And I think Donald Trump owes zippo to anybody. He can go fuck you to everybody. It's not going to change his life.
Well, and he wasn't going to worry if he was going to lose because he would have the money to support him through whatever whatever would happen afterwards. Maybe a lot of people wouldn't have been able to say those outlandish, really terrible things because it would have affected them in business later on and stuff. Now, Brad, you brought up something which now, for the first time, I just thought of, which is kind of interesting, and I want to ask both of you this, Sean. In Canada here, we're very liberal now, whereas before we were very conservative. And it's almost like the polar opposite of what's going on with the United States. Do you have any thoughts as to why that's happening?
It always happens. It's kind of flip-flops. It's a cyclical thing. Like when Diefenbaker was prime minister, JFK was president. It's kind of that.
You had the Brian Mulroney, Reagan era where they were loving each other together, but I mean, basically, it's hard to get more than 8 years of a political system in power because there's always some group that's not getting what they want, right? And so, and by the way, no one really rules properly or well. I mean, like our prime minister is going to fuck it up too. I mean, it's
you see his big kiss-ass message to Trump already today.
What are you going to do?
Yes, yeah.
You can't. It's very hard to govern people because so many interest groups. Like people want lower taxes, but they want free medicine, and they want like it's hard to balance the needs of everybody because there's not enough money to go around. So eventually, you're going to let people down, right? That's the way it works.
And were you surprised by it though?
No, I called it 2 weeks ago, and I also yesterday I brought a couple of guys in my office. I was watching it around 4:00. I said, they're projecting record voter turnout. So I said, let me ask you a question. Hillary Clinton represents the status quo. So what would make people excited enough to come out for the status quo? Because it's about change, right? That's what makes people get off their ass who never voted before to come vote now.
Like what happened with Obama.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, so what's different here? Hillary Clinton's the status quo. This guy Trump is not the status quo. I think the record number of people are coming out. And it was record numbers of white people and Hispanic people, right? The black population of the United States did not come out in record numbers. And so because I saw the huge number of white people, I just concluded they were coming out for Trump, and they were. All the people you look at every state, just around the cities, just tiny bits of blue and then blasts of red everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
So it was
56% of white people voted for Trump, 37% for Clinton.
Right, and so they voted for change. They're tired of despite the fact that Donald Trump said some buffoonish things and behaved badly. He's a lightning rod for change. And a lot of the things, by the way, if you listen to his policies, one of the smartest things this guy's said in his economic policy is he's going to offer a 10% reparation tax. Sorry. I'm going to say it properly. He's going to charge all the corporations that are withholding money in foreign countries because of lower tax rates. Like their profits are stuck in Ireland or Germany or wherever else.
To bring it back to America.
And the number's in excess of $10 trillion. So Apple's a big one. Microsoft, Google, they have billions of dollars. He's going to offer a one-time 10% tax rate to bring it back to the States. Now, how smart is that? They're never going to bring it back because tax rates in the States are 35%. So he's going to say, bring it back. We'll charge a one-time fee of 10%. And now that money is in the States employing and investing and making Americans wealthier. And they're taking it out of all those countries that the money's being held at, helping those countries. It's actually going to help the United States tremendously. If you're all about helping the United States, that one move's going to do amazing things to the U.S. economy.
The other thing that is interesting about Trump is he really wants to give a break for students, college students, for their funds going to college, which will, and it ties back to sort of, Brad, what you do, it help people one day have affordable homes because they're not so in debt when they finally graduate from it. Do you think that's sort of an effective goal?
Yeah, I listen. Like when I listened to his before, after his rant, he had the special press conference. He's coming out to talk about his first 100 days in office, and he had about a 20-minute rant that everyone got upset about, and then he got into the nitty-gritty about what his policies are. And I got to say, every single thing that he brought up, like for instance, I'll give you another example. When Mitt Romney ran for president. I'm going to give you rough numbers because I don't remember the exact numbers, but he made about $30 million that year, and he paid about $2 million in tax. And everyone got up in arms about that, saying, "Man, that's unfair. You make all that money, you'll pay any tax." He said, "Well, I'm paying the tax I have to pay. I'm not going to pay more tax than I have to pay." And the reason for that is because in the United States, capital gains are taxed at a very, very low rate. We're taxed at a low rate for capital gains too. But in the States, it's something like 10% on capital gains. And how they pay executives in the United States is say, okay, you're running Procter & Gamble. We'll give you $500,000 for an annual salary, and we'll give you $40 million in tax or in stock options. And those stock options can vest in a year. Now, he's had them from previous years. So if he vests them and then he exercises them, he makes the $40 million. He pays 10% tax on that $40 million. And that's how executives and guys that run, like Google guys that get stock options and Microsoft guys.
So they become billionaires.
Well, they pay no tax.
Yep.
Right? And so Donald Trump's saying, we're going to have, I believe the number was 3 taxation areas. There'll be, 0 to whatever to whatever, and the higher end. And there's 3. And there's no more stupid tax breaks and stupid tax write-offs, and it's going to be more of a flat tax. And so the tax return in the United States will be very, very simple to fill out. It won't require, like I had a bunch of property in states I sold, and I had to hire a tax accountant in the United States. It was very, very complex just for selling some property. So, listen, the flat taxes can be stupid because you're undertaxing people and possibly you're not going to get enough tax revenue. But I do believe there's a simplification to the U.S. tax laws that will allow for the same amount of money to be collected by redistributing it. And I think simplifying that stuff's a good idea. He's got some great ideas. It's just the delivery of his message was hard for people to take.
And the delivery was, it's wrestling, man. He did what he had to do to get there. If he wasn't sort of shaking up the system, he wouldn't have resonated. He would have engaged. There was no point in people wouldn't have thought that he would be taken seriously to make change. Sean Cullen, what is his responsibility now, as the president-elect and soon January 20th to be the president, to because there's a lot of terrible people in America that we do know. There's a lot of racists. There's a lot of very ignorant folk. There's a lot of very uneducated people that just don't want to evolve and grow with the nation that should and needs to. What is his moral responsibility? Does he backpedal on some of his statements? Does he connect to people in a more empathetic way? Do you think he's capable of that?
Well, I think he has to prove that he can be president for everyone in the country, not just for his constituents. And things like the giant wall, I think, are probably going to fall by the wayside.
No, I think that giant wall is going to happen.
You
really?
do? Really?
100%. It's totally necessary. Totally necessary. There are in excess of 5 million Mexicans and or Central Americans bum rushing the border every year. They catch about 40% of them and put them back. And a lot of those people, the cartels own the Mexican border. You got to understand that. It's not the Mexican government does not control their border anymore. It's controlled by the drug lords. The Sinaloa cartel is the biggest and most effective in menacing people with being chopped off and crazy
Hanging
stuff.
from bridges, yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
crazy. Dropped in acid alive, just horrible ways of scaring the shit out of people. If you want to go from Mexico to the United States, you have to go through the Sinaloa cartel, and that means you have to be somehow involved in drugs. They're not going to let you through unless you carry drugs for them. So not everybody does, but a huge number of people that come from Mexico to the United States are normal citizens that are smuggling drugs on behalf of the cartels, and that has to stop. I mean, the cartels. That's like you've got a Somalia, basically a rogue state in Mexico right now. It's an incredibly dangerous place to go, and it's an incredibly dangerous place to live.
I mean, it was interesting to find out that the Latino vote, he had more of the Latino vote than Romney did. So it wasn't a big amount still, but he had more of the African American vote than Romney did as well. So, he connected with people on some of these hard issues and stuff. But I mean, is the wall, Brad, despite, you thinking it being necessary, is it counterproductive to how, just on the perception level, on a pure perception level, on how, America, leader of the free world, in terms of representing peace and unity and really giving that message, is there not another solution?
Listen, Mexico is out of control. The government's not governing that country anymore. I mean, it's absolutely out of control. The amount of murders that take place in Mexico is astronomical. Like millions of people have been murdered in these drug wars in Mexico. The atrocities are unbelievable, and so yes, you should be like Canada, where you can cross relatively easily, but first the Mexican government has to prove that they deserve that, and right now they deserve a wall. It's out of control. They need to fix their system there first before Americans. Listen, I'm not American, I'm Canadian, but I can tell you, if it was my south border, I'd be advocating a wall. Like, you're not safe. There's, this violence is trickling into Arizona. Dallas is now the drug capital of the world. More drugs flow through Dallas than any other place in the world. That's the place.
That's just by Mark Cuban. Okay.
Probably. Mark Cuban's
Well, it's when Reagan was elected, immediately Iran released its hostages, and the Russians were ready to leave Afghanistan before he arrived in office, and maybe that kind of fear as to what Trump is going to do and how we will react to these things, maybe that will be a beneficial thing. Maybe it'll lead to some kind of accommodation with a lot of.
Well, it's an interesting relationship with him and Putin, and who knows, what's going to go on with that. Do you have any guesses, Sean?
Putin is a wonderful man, brilliant, incredibly generous guy, a wonderful horseback rider, and a wrestler, a martial artist. He is, and my good friend Steven Seagal. We often very, very supportive man. I don't know.
How does this affect the markets, if so at all, the decision, the housing markets?
It won't affect our housing markets one iota. It's not going to. I mean, listen, the stock market probably fell. I don't know. It probably fell 800 points in the U.S. I didn't have a chance to see.
That's what they said, and now it's coming back up.
Yeah, who cares? It's the dead cat bounce. The thing's going to fall. It's going to come back. Eventually, what's going to happen is people on Wall Street, investors, are going to realize Donald Trump's not bad for the U.S. economy. He's actually good. He's going to do some good things for the U.S. economy. I mean, a lot of the stuff he can't do. He's not going to be able to instantaneously bring manufacturing back to.
Was that me? Sorry about that. I've just been eating a bunch of production lines this week.
Brad, CBC Marketplace did a were the good lines?
No, delicious.
CBC Marketplace did an expose on how real estate agents will rig multiple offers on homes, and is that something that the home owners or people who are looking to buy or sell should fear?
Someone did a undercover expose on that, and listen, there are in every industry bad people. Our industry has way too many idiots selling real estate. There's I don't know, probably 50,000 real estate agents, and most of them are part-time, and most of them sell 1 to 2 properties a year. I'm going to say over 80% of the agents working in Toronto sell between 1 and 2 properties a year.
Just as extra income.
They're just useless. They're useless. They're terrible for the industry because they actually hurt consumers with their lack of knowledge, right? So consumers either sell too cheaply, or buyers pay too much, or the contracts aren't properly vetted. just misinformation, and they do stuff like that, where they'll say, listen, like I have this property for sale, but I can guarantee you're going to get to buy it because I control the bid. I'm quite sure that happens sometimes, but I can tell you that it doesn't happen very often. And I don't think there's any need for a massive overhaul in any market in Canada.
I'm very intrigued. Bilal has a question for you, Brad.
Yeah, on that story, sort of they showed Australia and the example, and I don't know if you saw it, of the street bidding, where essentially a house will be for bid, and there'll be 20 or so people out there, and they'll want to bid on it. Would you see that as a solution? Because it could create sort of market stability, and it could encourage people to actually bid more on properties.
Well, so there's many ways to host an auction. There's silent bidding, where nobody knows what your price is, and then there's the kind of Sotheby's thing where you hold up your paddle and you do it that way. That's how they do it in Australia. It works too. I don't think the system here is broken, but I don't think that would change anything anyway. Open bids are fine too. Either way, it's okay. You should be able to buy a property and give a sealed bid to someone. Like we're in a situation now where we're in these bids. Right, it's not going to last forever. Like this is just a very unique time in Toronto's history when we've done 40 years of city building in 5 or 6 years. Like seriously, they did analysis. The City of Toronto and Ontario did analysis of where they saw Toronto in 2041. We've exceeded that by 2016, and so this is just a really amazing time to be a landowner.
Are you saying we're in the future right now, Brad? We're time traveling.
We are on a spaceship traveling.
Unbelievable.
It's idiocracy.
It is exciting.
The housing prices in Toronto are nuts. Like semi-detached are like $770,000 average, and $1.3 million or something for detached in Toronto. Is this continue to be a fear for people who want to own a home, or will anything be done about this? Will it keep going up?
Well, so I think actually it's the average home price is $700,000. That includes condos, and the average detached thing's 1.4. I said this. I was actually dredged up an article I was quoted in 2012 saying that the change coming in the future is that couples will be living in condos because they won't be able to afford houses. It's going to come faster than you think. We're there now. Couples can't afford houses, so they're now buying condos. And I think that's a good thing. We wanted that. We wanted people to be forced out of commuting and buying large houses, even in the Toronto suburbs, where they're using large amounts of land wastefully, not paying the appropriate share of taxes because they're using so much land and services wastefully. We want to take that and move them into cities. And it's uncomfortable. People don't want that. They want to live in their own little piece of paradise, but that's not the future of the planet. So everything is going according to plan. And part of the plan is higher prices. That's how we force people into living in cities. They can't live in a house. And so trying to stop that is foolhardy. It's going to stop what we're doing here. And I also think that government. Let me say this. The Christy Clark, who I have not a lot of respect for, announced her 15% investor tax in British Columbia. The first thing I said is she's so dumb. She doesn't realize that's going to kill her economy, because 25% of their economy in British Columbia comes from new development, new construction, right, for residential. 25%. So what's happened?
And a lot of that would be foreign investment, investing into that?
Well, it could be anything. It could be me buying a condo in Vancouver because I like it and I want to have a pied-à-terre. It could be anyone buying something from floor plans, okay? And I said what's going to happen is if you tax Chinese, because that's what the tax is aimed at, despite they'll say it's a foreigner tax, if you tax foreigners, they'll stop buying those new condos. So now developers can't pre-sell their buildings and they can't borrow money to build. So guess what? Building permits will plummet. Well, guess what happened? Building permits are down residentially 50% last October, 50%. A wipeout, an absolute wipeout. So now you cannot sell a condominium from floor plans in British Columbia without investors, because no one's going to buy a condominium and wait 5.5 years to move in. Would you?
Only if I knew I'd make a lot of money over it, like, as an investment. Yeah, for an investment. Yeah,
investment.
That's the only reason. And luckily, I've done that. To be honest,
yeah.
Like
you might say, okay, honey, in 5 years, when you're older, we want to retire, so let's buy this condo knowing in 5 years.
Yeah.
So the very, very small number of people will plan like that. But most of this stuff, 80%, 90% sold by investors, because they sell, you bring up 400 units in Toronto they sell in 3 hours. Well, those the homeowners can't make that kind of decision. Those are investors. They're just purely investing, right? So she's killed their economy with that tax.
Sean, are you still in that condo?
Which one? No, I moved on from there. I bought, I had a nice house.
Oh, yeah, you.
I had another nice house. And my wife loves it.
You live in the house now?
No,
His
she
ex-wife.
does. Parkdale, just
you
over
have
here.
an ex-wife.
Yeah, she has a lovely house.
Funny enough, my
great.
ex-wife has a lovely house.
Isn't it amazing?
It's a beautiful house.
It's incredible. And she's very happy in it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You might have an ex-wife.
No, I won't. Although I think I was very rude last night. So maybe we haven't seen each other
You
today.
don't know.
That's a good point.
You don't know.
She
Day
might be
to
living
day.
in my house right now.
Yeah.
I would govern yourself accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that mean get a will? I still don't have
No,
one.
it means
Okay.
be nice to your wife. Treat her well.
No, I know.
Be true to your school. Be nice to your wife.
That's right.
2 great Beach Boys songs. Be nice to your wife. Yeah, it's good.
They did it on multi-tracks. It was amazing.
did.
The
They're very talented
ever,
guys.
I'll tell you. Well, Brad, that was fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell
You really brought us into focus what's happening in the world today.
No, but it's educational because you see things differently and you're a visionary. But we never played a game. We got to pitch ideas. We have time. We got to pitch some ideas to Brad. Sean, I want you to come up on the fly. And pitch
All right, I'll do my best.
We have an ID. Hang on, play it. You don't have it ready?
I removed it.
I don't know why you remove things. I don't care if time goes on. It's
went
Brad
long.
Lamb.
You're fired. You're fired.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're fired.
Do you work on that, Sean? Like, did you?
You're fired.
I don't know why.
Nobody liked working with you. You're an idiot. You're fat. You're stupid. You're fired.
I liked Trump on The Celebrity Apprentice. I'll tell you why. Because for a douchebag who looks like the way I look with hats and I never wear socks and things. What I liked about him on The Apprentice, and I hope he brings this in as the president of the United States, is that he didn't judge people based on their looks. He judged them based on their performance. And I got to be honest, and I've said that many times. Because you should never judge people. I've been judged many times. It's hurt me a lot in my life. And I hope that now that he's there, he can sort of replicate that attitude. Does that make sense?
So maybe cut your hair.
No, see, I don't want to.
Cut your hair.
If you were my wife, you'd be telling me to cut it and wash it. So she does not like the smell. Here we go.
Would Brad invest in this?
Let's see Sean Cullen's great improv skills here. If he can come up with something, and Brad's worth probably more money than all of us in the room, times 100. Can you come up maybe with
Would you invest in floating condominiums in Lake Ontario?
Well, I love that idea. Floating condominiums. It's going to come to that.
Well, we're going to expand out into the water on piers and things like that and build
The
condos.
environmentalists won't go for that.
There's nothing alive in Lake Ontario.
No, you're right. Bacteria.
Well,
You need
that could
bacteria.
help.
There's good bacteria and bad bacteria.
What kind of material would you need in a condo for it not to be Lake Ontario bacteria proof?
You know what? What you'd probably do is you'd probably build them on piers. I like that idea. Let's annex Lake Ontario and just build it over with condos. No more Lake Ontario.
Well, you got to have it high enough on the pier so at least some sailboats and ships could get through. But other than that, right?
Fuck the sailboats.
Okay. You don't like getting on a sailboat from time to time?
By the way, I'm kidding.
I know you are.
I'm kidding. Just in case anyone's listening thinks I'm not kidding, I am kidding. I love Lake Ontario.
Do you love Lake Ontario?
I really do. It's a beautiful lake.
Yeah. I know. That should have been built up around. I know we're getting off topic here, but it's too bad that wasn't properly built up around. It really is.
well, it's weird that the sugar factory is still there
It
in the
is.
middle of everything.
And our city government thinks that's such an important thing to have in Toronto, that sugar. It's not even, all it is really, they just people dump sugar there, and I think it gets just put into trucks and taken away. I don't think they do anything other than that. They don't package it or refine it there. I think it's just a dump where they dump sugar.
It's like
Sugar
a bus
dump.
station.
Yeah, it's like a sugar bus
dump.
station. It's a sugar dump.
That's what they called me in high school.
I think
Old sugar dump.
I heard stories. They're written on the bathroom stalls.
That's right.
Brad, thank you for hanging out. I knew you'd bring a lot to the table here, judging by those election results yesterday and your knowledge following all of this kind of stuff. You'll be back next Wednesday, as you are every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. And go to TorontoCondos.com. If you're looking to make a real estate investment or simply live in a beautiful condo, make sure you live in the LAMB standard. And it's been nice hanging out with you.
The Todd Shapiro Show.